morning, ladies. How are you doing?
Good morning. you know what, Robin, I'm not gonna lie, I've had better mornings. This is a special edition though of the Special Agent Mom podcast, and we have guests with us today. Before we get to that though, and for introductions, I will admit that I am recording from home today because I'm having a snow day, not by choice. I did make a valiant effort to get to work, but no can do. Little blue car is stuck in the driveway. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yes, I am Jody Drake, the Pratt County Extension Agent, joined by Robin Eubank Callis, the Barber County Extension Agent. And today we have a special guest. We have Carol Ann Crouch. Carol Ann, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. First, thanks for inviting me to be a part of your podcast. I think this is interesting, and this is the first podcast I've ever had a chance to do. But I'm
Woo!
Carol Ann Crouch. I am the District Director for the West Plains Extension District, Finney and Scott County in Western Kansas. But I grew up in South Central Kansas, Barber County, Medicine Lodge. So, you know, your area is near and dear to me. So. I've been
Well,
an agent for a little over 22 years and in my current role as director since 2020.
so so between three of us, we've got tons of years between three of us. Before we go too much further, I'm going to apologize for my sound quality because I am on iPad today. So I'm going to let Robin do most of this. And I'm also going to apologize for interruptions today, too, because I've already had one. Um, my teenager has already interrupted me today, and I may have a cat walk by occasionally, too. So I'm going to hand it over to Robin.
So I think that's what's really cool, and that's part of why I think we picked this name is yes, we're extension agents, but we're also moms. And we share our real life and real lived experiences on here. So I guess I should make the same disclaimer because we have a snow day for school, and so my son is around, but hopefully he's tucked away and busy for the next time while we're recording this. But so today we're going to talk about decluttering tips with Carolyn, not cluttering, decluttering tips. But I want to start with a question and see. So I'm curious, did you suffer with clutter issues, Jody? Should we share do you have clutter in your life before we put Carolyn on the spot?
Oh, do I ever? I live with two girls. Let me just tell you a little story. So
Uh-huh.
when I finally got one of them out of the house and she went off to college, and then I attacked her room and decluttered it.
Oh no.
Oh, yes.
I would
Oh,
feel so violated if my mother had done that.
I gave her the opportunity. I said, child, I need you to
I'm with
clean out
Jody
your.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with Jody on that. When my daughters went off, if
Thank
they
you,
weren't
Carol Ann.
taking certain clothes with them, they weren't
Mhm.
coming back for them. They get new things,
She
time to
had
get rid of it.
she'd been gone for a few semesters. She'd gone to Florida, done an internship. And I said, okay, girl, uh, we got to pick up this room. We got to pick up this room. Every time she'd come home and then nothing happened. Finally, I'd had it and I decluttered and I threw away a lot of things she will never miss. And it looked a lot better. So, yes, I do declutter. And when
So
mom declutters, things disappear.
it's funny that you tell that story because I was sitting here thinking, maybe, yeah, I've got some clutter in my house, but I still have belongings in my parents' farmhouse that didn't go to college with me and haven't moved out yet. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not looking forward to going home and facing them, but I'm gonna have to because my sister and I will inherit that to take care of one day. So, all right then. So, Carol Ann, what got you interested in this topic?
Well, I don't really have anything in my memory that makes me think, oh yeah, I've got to handle this. But when I was a newer agent, someone asked me about some information for this, and um it's just kind of developed probably in the last, I mean, every year for the last 15 years. This is a program that people ask me about, and I've got various versions of it and done it in various places. And another program that I like to do is a program called Who Gets Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate? I'll be a keynote speaker on that
Mhm.
for Women Managing the Farm Conference in Manhattan in February. It's a little bit similar, but not quite. But yeah, nothing in particular, just something that's evolved with my career over the last 15 years.
That the yellow pie plate program's a good, it's a good program too. It really is. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many children do you have, Carol Ann? Remind me.
I have two daughters. They both are older and been on their own, and one recently got married, moved to Oklahoma. And I hate to admit this, but so when they come home, one lived in Dodge City, but didn't really have to go out and about and do things if the weather was bad. The other one has horses, so she took all her chore coats and muck boots and things. But the one that recently just moved to Oklahoma moved to the country, and she texted me the other day and says, "Remind me to get my big beaver coat." And when we say beaver, it's a big chore coat with a beaver lining. So she didn't need it when she just lived in her apartment in Dodge City, but now that she's out on the ranch, she really needs her ranching clothes that she's left at my house. So I'm ready to declutter that part of her closet, the things that she left at home, so she had them available when she'd come help move cattle or whatever. But so yeah, I got two daughters, but they're grown and on their own.
Success.
Very much so. So I know one of the questions, because I've been in your programs before, you always talk about hoarding versus decluttering or
Mhm.
I want you to explain it because you explain it so much better and the difference to be aware of.
Okay, so Robin, when I start my programs, I'm always very careful to explain to people that, somebody that's a hoarder, first of all, we're not mental health providers. We're not any kind of health provider. We're not professionals on this subject. We're a jack of all trades, but people that are hoarders, that's a mental condition that is goes with OCD, and it's usually something that can't be fixed by getting organized. That is something that has to be treated with therapies, and they need to seek that professional help. There is a difference between people that hoard and clutter. People that hoard, that those tendencies a lot of times will start earlier. Kids that start collecting large amounts of something in their pockets, whether it's, you know, rocks or what bottle caps or whatever it might be. But a hoarder has the inability to discard something.
Hmm.
When decluttering a lot of time is just the time to take care of business. So, people that have hoarding tendencies they don't do anything because they're afraid of making the wrong decision.
Oh,
So those are the
interesting.
folks that among us that tend to have hoarding tendencies. There is a wonderful website out there called let me think here, the Institute on, what is it called? I lost my spot, but it's the Institute uh,
For challenging
disorders.
disorganization.
Yes.
Yes, you
And
share
they've
that with
got,
us, and
I'm
we'll
sorry.
share that link in our description of the podcast so everybody can follow up with that. But tell us about it.
Perfect. So it's a great website, and on there they do have this color chart that talks about like whether or not how like there's 5 levels from not really a hoarder to extreme hoarder. And one of the things that it talks about in those levels is even just on this scale there's 5 different colors. And for example, here's an example. A green is not much of a hoarder, but all doorways and stairways and windows are accessible. That's level 1. You get down to level 3, and it'll say, when it comes to the structure, outside clutter of items normally stored inside. You'll find those on the outside of the homes.
Mm.
But if you get all the way down to level 5, extreme indoor outdoor clutter, foliage overgrowth, abandoned machinery, more than likely the HVAC systems aren't working. I mean, there's a great scale in there that tells you whether or not you're a hoarder or and at what level. Most of us, if you go back to this first level, um, you know, but all of our plumbing's functional. An extreme hoarder, their plumbing's probably not functional. And a middle hoarder, maybe one bathroom's usable and one's not. So because they've got stuff piled in it, not because the plumbing's not
Oh.
working. It's a great tool to use. I remember teaching this class on decluttering, and I had a little lady there that I asked him, what made you come? And she says, well, my husband made me. He calls me a hoarder. She was not a hoarder. She just had trinkets, how
Hmm.
folks accumulate because people don't know what to give you for a gift. So they give you something of a collection, not that you need more, but because they feel
Dust
obligated.
catchers.
Yeah. So, and decluttering is just that. It's usually the lack of time or too
Hmm.
much stuff to get it organized. It's a little
Hmm.
bit different.
Yep. Yep. I don't know if either one of you have ever had the honor, privilege, I don't know what you want to call it, of having to clean out a loved one's house after they've passed away. But it is it's an emotional journey. It really is. I remember when my grandma passed away and my mom was an only child. And so I ended up helping her clean out grandma's house. And oh, the things that woman saved.
And that's from life
She,
experiences.
exactly. She was not a hoarder, but she had a lot of clutter. She had
Mhm,
a lot of clutter.
mhm.
She would save things like plastic grocery bags. I mean, we found stashes of those all over the house, things like that. That's what I would consider, clutter around the house. But then she had other keepsakes, like she had every single greeting card that we ever gave her. And those were wonderful memories too. So,
But
and
you
that I
can't keep
wouldn't
it all.
consider clutter. Yeah.
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 Well, and I think you make a good point there about it that depends on their life because I
Hmm.
remember one of my grandmother's houses and my uncle kept talking about the number of butter tubs.
Oh yeah,
Well,
she had lots of those too.
um, you
Yeah.
know, grandma grew up in the 20s
In the
and
Depression era.
earlier
Yeah.
in very rural Oklahoma. So a butter
Hmm.
tub was a very useful item for any number of reasons that maybe we don't
Yep.
see it the same way today. So yeah, we're talking some emotional strings there today. So,
Yeah.
okay, so once we can look and find out it's really just clutter we're talking about. We're not hoarding, not needing professional help. You have some steps that might be able to help us move forward.
Yeah. So once you determine there's some things that you need to clean out, first of all, I always say, you know, clutter is more than just physical stuff in front of you. I don't like little trinkets around my house because I have an arena behind my house on the south side. In the summer, the wind out here in western Kansas blows out of the south, and the dust. I hate dusting around all that stuff. And so, clutter also takes your time. And the less time you have for other important things, and that's clutter. Um, Debt is clutter. When you have debt, you have to work to pay for it, right? And so the harder you have to work to pay for debt, the less options you have to take time off with or without pay for other things. So there's more. When we talk about clutter, you could talk about everything from your social calendar to debt to or your house and the things you have in your home. So, the first thing I always want to suggest to people is, you know, do you remember your first bicycle? Do you still have it? We don't have to physically own something to have our memories. And so,
That's a good
then
point. Yeah.
we start talking about
Hmm.
the decluttering process, what kinds of things you can let go. I know some of the big things for folks are some of the hardest things are photos. People want to know,
Mm.
what do I do with photos? The thing of it is here in the future, we won't even really have photos to declutter, but then we
Mm-mm.
won't have those options to go back and know our ancestors as well. But I always tell people when it comes to photos, that's very hard. We've got tubs and tubs of them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there for a while, you got free double prints of everything. And
Yeah,
before,
I forgot about that.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
so before we had, photos you could delete immediately if they weren't good, you'd take two or three to make sure you got a good one. So I always tell people, if it's a photo of a scene and there's like scenery from somebody on vacation back in the 70s, man, throw it away. If you weren't there, it wasn't your experience. How do you even know where it's at, right? Just because mom and dad took their honeymoon in Colorado, if they're not in the photo, there's no reason to keep that, right? If it's a bad photo of somebody and you have other photos of them, don't keep it. You don't want somebody to keep a bad photo of you. So especially if there's other photos of you in that same time that are good. If their heads are cut off or half the photo or, don't keep those kind of photos. I tell a story about my sister and photos. My sister's huge into genealogy and she's got some really cool things. But one time she had this frame hanging in her living room. And my nephew had just gotten married, so my sister had a new daughter-in-law. And this photo was decorative and it had like three spots for different photos. It was this kind of, and I finally, after visiting a couple times and looking at these photos, I didn't recognize the people. So I thought maybe they were my sister's husband's family. So I just said, Cheryl. Actually, I say Cheryl, I always slur her name, but I said, Cheryl. I said, who are these people? And she goes, I don't know. Those people came in the frame and I haven't changed it out yet. And her new daughter-in-law goes, are you telling me I would have kept these photos forever thinking they were family members and they come from Walmart, And so that's just if we don't know who they are and you don't have anybody that can identify them, it's probably not worth keeping. They very well could be the photos from Walmart.
That's funny.
Isn't that a funny story? But it's a true story. It's a
That's
true
funny.
story. And it's just
Okay.
like anything else. If you don't know if the history behind it or who it is, and there's nobody left to help you with those answers,
Hmm.
there's no real reason to keep them.
Right. Yeah.
That's why it's important to identify things.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's important for you today, it should be important for you to take the time to identify and put some notes in them, notes on them, whatever it might take if for future generations. Because quilts. I have quilts in my house that I made, my daughters have made, but I also have quilts in my house that I didn't make that were purchased like I bought it because I thought it was pretty at a thrift store. Well, my kids aren't going to want that quilt, but they don't necessarily need to keep just because I liked it doesn't mean it has any significant family history. So make sure people are aware of that. So those tangible items that really have no connections are not kept.
You see it. I'm getting slightly distracted. There's a tractor going up my driveway right now. So
Well,
sorry.
that's good. That means you made good
Woohoo!
work
I
next
know.
week.
I know.
You
Thinking
And,
know,
out
and I
some
just
loud.
love by the time this airs, we probably won't have any snow on the ground in Kansas,
I
but
know. It'll all be a moot point.
yeah.
it is what it is. Okay, so I love that story though about the bicycle and that just holding on to the memory is enough. I obviously, it makes me curious. Maybe I need to go back out to the farm and dig in the barn and see if my first bicycle's still out there. Because it very well could be.
Yeah.
But
And here's the thing too. I mean, I know we don't have our first bicycles. Our first bicycle, I have a twin sister, and I remember when we got our first bicycles, mom and dad, we went to Wichita. Of course, you went to the bicycle store back then, right? You didn't go to Walmart or to wherever and get a bicycle. You went to the bicycle store. There was some twin girls that were apparently older than us that had traded their little banana seat bicycles in. They were baby blue and got different bicycles. So our first bicycles were matching, but they were used. And I know that my bicycle went to my nephew once I got too big for it. But had I hoarded that, that would have taken that memory from that next generation. And so sometimes it's not worth keeping for ourselves, but to pass on those opportunities to make new memories.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes holding on to something, you're depriving somebody else of some opportunity. but teach their own.
Okay, so if we are ready to maybe tackle clutter, where do you start? What do you do?
Yeah. So paper clutter is another one that people are like, ugh, right? Well, there's all kinds of guidelines. You can Google how long should I keep what and that kind of thing. But I also try to tell people don't handle paper clutter more than once, possibly twice. You bring your mail in, you immediately discard, shred, burn, whatever it is you're doing, the junk, right? You put your bills in your place that you pay bills, and then you may handle bills again, and then you file those. But don't bring it in, sort through it, lay it on the table. Sort through it, deal with it, put it where it goes. Try to handle, and same thing in your offices, the least you handle it, the faster you can find it and get to it. And there's some of us that are very much organized clutters. Like my desk has always got piles on it, but I know where those things are, right? If I file them, I probably won't find them. But some of the tips I do try to share is, you know, you want to start small. You always want to give yourself the time as necessary to declutter and to know that you're not going to achieve everything all at once. You know, taking off a week to do something like that, unless you need to travel somewhere to declutter a grandparent's house or something, I don't suggest doing it all at one time because you will get overwhelmed and you will get tired and you will be, done with it. So I always say start small, pick a drawer, pick a closet. I get bored at home pretty easy, so I'm always rummaging through my closet and getting rid of something more. We all like new things. There's no reason, to hold things around that may not be useful again. People are always like, "Oh, I've got clothes. I'm going to get back into them." Well, I'm telling you right now that if I lose weight, I'm buying new clothes. I'm not going to wear something that's 10 years old and outdated. I mean, if I'm going to get looking good, I'm going to be looking good, right? I'm not going to go back to the way
Amen.
from fashions from 10 years ago. So I don't hold on to clothes that don't fit. My house is too small for that. Um, set a timer. Don't try to do it all at once. If you got 15 minutes, set 15 minutes, or an hour, set an hour. Um, you know, I sat in my basement one winter and went through photos while I watched my favorite show on TV. I just kind of made a point to go down there about an hour, you know, tried to go down 3 or 4 nights a week. I didn't overwhelm myself. But whatever you start, try to find a stopping point.
Mm.
Decluttering all those photos, I wasn't able to, finish it, but I found a stopping point every time. But I find for myself when I declutter, I pull everything out away from the space I want to declutter, sort through it, and put it back. I don't try to rearrange it. And another thing, if you got to buy more totes to store more clutter, then you got too much clutter. And if you can't get to it, you ain't going to use it. I'm just
Mhm.
telling you that right here now. Think about the items in your kitchens. Who's got crock pots and Instapots and blenders and things like that are in the back of the closet or cabinets because they're too big? You don't use them on a daily basis. And think about the things that I've got a electric skillet in the back of my cabinet that's fixing to find a new home. When we were rodeoing pretty hard, that thing got lots of use because I could plug it in the horse trailer and I can cook meals, right? But I have a stove. I don't need electric skillet. That's just something that's cluttering up my cabinet because I'm not ever going to pick my electric skillet over my stove. I've already got the
Sure.
stove. It's not going anywhere, right? So
Yep.
that's an option.
Yep.
So, but yeah, you just want to start small. A lot of people get too deep in the weeds too fast and then they find themselves overwhelmed. But just start small and work your way to it. If you when I declutter my closet, I pull everything out. I put like items together just so you could see how much you have or don't have. And then I put all my hangers on backwards. And as I wear them for the season, at the end of the season, if it's still hanging backwards, I know I haven't worn it all
Oh,
season long, out it goes.
that's
You
a
know,
good tip. I like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
How many of you guys have bought new black pants or new black blouses or shirts because the other ones are starting to get faded? Have you ever done that? Because black,
Uh-huh.
you want black, right? So why
Mm-hmm.
did we keep the faded ones if we, pretty soon
Mm-hmm.
you have, 10 black faded shirts that you never wear because they're faded. So why keep them, right? There are
Right.
folks who could use our leftovers very much so. So I always highly suggest
Mhm.
donating those kinds of things. But another thing that I find helpful is I always have a bag or a box. When my kids were home, it was a basket. Now it's a plastic trash or plastic grocery bag. I hang it on the door of my closet. And if I put something on I don't want, doesn't, I don't like it. I mean, I take it off, fold it up, put it in the bag to get rid of. When my kids were home, it was a basket. As my kids went through things and got things that they didn't want, we threw it in the basket and then, you donate it. But a lot of people use a box method to help declutter, one to donate, one to put away, one that's trash, and that's helpful. Um, if you find some things that you just can't part with just yet, put them in a tub or a box, date it, put it away in storage. If pull it out in a year, you haven't missed it, don't know what's in it, haven't used it, that ought to give you some indication of what you might can do without.
These are some awesome tips. I really like these. Caroline, do you find that it's maybe kind of a generational thing too? I mean, as far as the ease of decluttering, because I honestly do not have a problem with pitching things, getting rid of things, um,
Yes.
hanging on to things. Whereas I know my mom, she saved a lot of things. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things in her basement still. I mean,
Yeah.
my mom's gone now, but she was a saver of things. She was a hoarder, maybe not a hoarder. She had a lot of clutter.
Right.
Is it a
So,
generational thing, do you think?
yeah, I think so. Because of the guilt of getting rid of something that somebody else has
Oh.
held on for so long. However, they may have held on to it for different reasons that you know of. My daughter tells me that a gift serves its purpose when it's given, right? The giver served its purpose from the giver and to the receiver. At that point, whoever it belongs to can make a decision. I talk
Mhm.
about something that often about when I was first married, I received a few gifts. I felt obligated because who gave them to me that I needed to have them in my home. Wasn't anything I liked. However, it dawned on me one day that I pay the mortgage on this house. I want to put the things in here I love.
Mhm.
And if they want, if they didn't ask me if this was something I wanted. They didn't ask me if it was the decor that I liked. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to feel guilty about that anymore. So out it went. Caroline, decided that that was my space. I was going to do it for myself. But yes, generational things. But most people don't give you a gift to make you feel obligated. So don't
That's a
feel
good
that way.
point.
If it's not something that's going to work for you, let it serve a bigger uh, uh, or a better purpose and donate to somebody it could work for. Um, but yeah, I think a generational thing is they feel obligated because it's been held on for so long. But back to the whole thing, if you don't know where it come from or what it was from or who made it or what it was used for, that's really it's really not um, very valuable to the family if there's no history with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
think with generations too, they feel that same guilt. And I know my mom kept a bunch of stuff when I was a kid and she gave it to me. And I'm like, why'd you keep this? She goes, well, I thought maybe you'd want it. And I'm like, oh, no, no. Some of my stuffed animals, she goes, well, don't you want them for your kids? I'm like, no, they can't be washed. My kids aren't getting those things. Those are nasty. So I tossed them. And she was like, you mean I kept those in for you all these years and you tossed them? I'm like, yeah, if you'd asked me, I told you I would have wanted them. So don't keep things without double checking too. Um, my kids have told me the things that they've wanted, and I've been surprised at the things that they want that at right now that they want versus the things I thought maybe they'd want. So always ask, don't just assume.
Yeah,
And don't
that's
leave it up to your kids because I'm telling you, they'll feel so overwhelmed that sometimes they'll just they won't even bother. They'll just do away with it all because we don't always live around our folks. I know folks who have had to go and declutter their parents' house. They live, 10 hours away. They have to fly there, have to take vacation, and they get to the point where they just let it all go because they do not have the time or the resources to take something back with them or to spend more time going through everything.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's some things that folks need to know. Check every pocket, check every toe of every shoe, every finger of every glove, underneath every mattress, and flip all your drawers upside down in dressers before you get rid of them. Same thing with books and magazines. Flip through them. You'll be surprised how many dollars you'll find by doing that.
I'm glad you said that because when we moved into the farmhouse that I live in, um, and again we had to do the decluttering of this house. Um, there were three. There was a family of four that lived here. There were three sisters and one brother who lived here. None of them ever got married, um, and they all very very nice family. They're related to us. But when we cleaned out the house, they had little pockets of money stashed all over this house.
Mhm.
And so we had to be very careful when we were cleaning out the house that we didn't get rid
Yeah.
of any of their money because one of them was still living in a long-term care facility here in Stafford, a little town not far from here. And so, yeah, you're right. That was a great tip, Carol Ann. I forgot about that. That made me think of that when you said that because they had little
Yeah.
pockets of, and it wasn't much. It wasn't much, just like little coins here and there. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a little tidy away. And the
Uh-huh.
other thing too is if you have to go in and do clutter quickly, try to gather up all the paperwork and set it aside to be done later because you might
Mm-hmm.
find bonds in those papers and
Yeah.
things like that, titles, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Don't just toss the paper clutter. It's easiest to get rid of, I think, clothing. If you really have an attachment to it, make a quilt out of it or something of that nature. But bed linens, you only have so many beds, you only need so many linens. We have our favorite things we go to over and over again. I talk about undergarments. If you have a drawer of undergarments and you've got some that you don't really like, they don't fit, they don't, just not what you want, why are you keeping them? You're never going to wear them. You're always going to choose something else, right? Socks with holes in them. Hey, toss them. And, I always talk about mowing clothes. I have X amount of clothes you mow in or whatever, and or painting clothes. I think, oh, I better save my painting clothes the next time I paint. Well, let me tell you, I probably only paint once every 5 years, and I've got a new old shirt by then, a new pair of wore out jeans or whatever. But my mowing clothes, I think to myself, I usually mow once a week. Why do I need two or three mowing shirts, right? I wash it, put it back on. So I kept the safety orange one from camp one last year. So, if I'm mowing the ditches, people can see me. But, we try to rationalize why we have things and we just really don't need that much. We'd be
Mm-hmm.
surprised with how little we can do with.
So true. So true.
But, there's sentimental value items. It's hard. It's really hard to get past that. So,
And I'm sitting here listening to you both talk about generations and what we're learning. And it makes me think about what I'm teaching my son right now. Because to him, all of his school papers that he brings home, and I kid you not, like 8 pieces of paper a day. I'm just like, really? I mean, I'm glad to see what you're learning, but at the same time, I'm thinking, yep, when you're not looking, I'm chunking
so,
98% of these.
so something I would tell parents is keep, kindergarten, keep papers they bring home from the first week after Christmas, and the last week of each school year. That's not a lot of or a special photo that they've made or something like that. But if you don't date it, it won't have any meaning, right? But you could see the progress that way. But to keep them all, they're all going to get shuffled together. You won't see any progress. So first week after Christmas, and the last week, date those. That's really probably all you need to keep as far as if you want to show some progress in their handwriting or their math abilities or any special photos or craft little items they do. But, there's no need to keep all of it. they're not going to want it either. I could promise you that.
But I mean, like right now, he's very proud of the coloring, proud of he wants to keep this sheet and that sheet. And I'm like, the stack can just grow. So I'm the one, but I think I need to teach him how to prioritize, is what I'm hearing. Teach
Yeah.
him the skills of what do we let go of because you're going to bring another coloring sheet next week.
Well, you could do that with like toys. I used to do that with my girls with stuffed animals. Okay, you've got 20, we're keeping 10. You want this one or this one? And then you bring up, you want this one or this one? And so then they shuffle it down and then they say, well, then they end up with 12. Okay, well, which two of these two you want to, give to we would give them to the Child Advocacy Center. So they went on for good reasons. However, we can't keep it all because, that next year for birthdays and Christmas, they'd get another 10 stuffed animals. So, you start shuffling it down, this one or this one. Give them a choice. Let them pick what to choose from, but also make sure they know like where those items are going and for what reason. And sometimes you have to play hardball. I mean, I went in with trash bags. They had lots of opportunity to clean up and pick up, and sometimes we just had to make some decisions. But if you're decluttering, if it's broken or stained or ripped or stinky, just go ahead and toss that stuff. But if it's things that other folks can use, there is a need, people. Need for blankets, need for towels, for kitchen items, clothing items, anything that you have extra of them that doesn't fit. There are needs for that for folks. Coats, you know, please feel like what you have, somebody else could probably use it. Now, if it's double polyester from the night from 1964 McCall pattern 1070, no, folks, that's probably not going to be used again. But you know what I'm saying. Feel feel free to share those things with places that can pass them on to loved ones. Cardigan sweaters, take them down to your local rest home. Those folks down there could use a good cardigan sweater once in a while. Same thing with little blankets. Everybody gets throws for various reasons. Share them because they wash them often enough. They do wear out at your local rest homes. But if you're storing something, make sure it's labeled. Make sure you know what's in that box. Put a date on it. Like I said, if you don't get into it for a year, rethink that. Have designated spots. So many of us have so much because we can't find it. So keep like items together. Keep all your batteries in one spot. Keep,
Yes. Yeah.
like items. And
Mm-hmm.
then,
That's a
you'd
good
probably be
tip.
surprised how little you could do. I mean, pens and pencils. Have you ever decluttered your junk drawer and you're like, where are all these pens coming
Mm-hmm.
from? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I
Yep.
load mine up and I bring them back to the office.
Yep.
We'll take them from the office. So,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
donate it if you don't need it, doesn't fit, doesn't bring you joy, you have no space for it. Everything should have a spot. If
Mm-hmm.
not, then it's pretty much considered clutter.
Yeah. Now, Robin,
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I know when I was decluttering clothes when the girls were little, because they don't wear out their clothes when they're little bitty. Um, I would either hand off the clothes to somebody else, gift them to somebody else, or I would take them to the consignment store a lot and try and get a little bit of money out of them. As they got older, though, I just didn't have the energy in me anymore to do that. I would just take them to Goodwill a lot too. Um, and in fact, that's kind of what I've been doing more and more. Although the girls have some nice dresses and stuff, though, that I have taken to the consignment store. Um, it, it just kind of depends on what I have. So I either do consignment store or I do Goodwill with my stuff. What do you do with your stuff?
So there's a consignment sale for little kids' clothes. And so that's what I was doing, especially when Brady was really little, is I would do consignment sales and sell his gently used because they do grow, especially in that 0 to 3 year range. They grow so quick and go through it. It's hardly used. But yeah, I also have a nephew that he's slightly larger than, and so we can step down in size and keep sharing it with family or
Yeah.
neighbors or you know. Carolyn, one thing I hadn't thought of until, I mean, every winter I'm reminded, but you were talking about all those the old blankets and old towels that may not be worth using. Animal shelters
Mhm.
love those.
Yes, they do. And they could almost take about any kind of linen,
Oh,
even old pillows.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah. So other
Mhm.
places to donate, I'm not a huge Goodwill, like donating to Goodwill. I do volunteer at our local Ministerial Alliance thrift store here, and the money provides food. But, also community closets or even
Mhm.
contact your local schools. There is a need. There are children in our own school district
Mhm.
with needs for clothing. So if you can bag those clothes up by size, like uh, female, male, size girl 14 or women's smalls or whatever, and donate those to your counselors at your school, I bet you that they will find homes for those clothing for students in need. But
Yes. Yeah,
there's
thanks,
there's
Carolyn.
great
That's a
places to do that.
great reminder. Yes, you are
Yeah.
so right. Because I know our local school has a clothing closet for kids as well, and then our local community also has a clothing closet that's free for people to come in and use, and they have a lot of professional clothing too for
Yes.
people that are going on interviews and things like that as well. And you can donate clothing there as well. They're
Yeah.
open one day a week, I believe.
And
But
including shoes, and
yes,
and don't
yeah.
forget your grade schools, because I know that
Mhm.
the nurses often keep spare clothing
Mhm.
that they just send home with kids when they're, have an
Mhm.
accident, whether it's spilling
Mhm.
a can of paint on them or,
Yeah.
another type of accident. But nurses oftentimes at your local elementary schools possibly could use multiple sizes in both types of genders, and their stash as well. But the best advice I can say, to stop the clutter is quit shopping. It's easy to do now, right? We have free credit. That's one of the reasons why we have so much, we've amassed so much is, mass produced, and credit made it easy for us to accumulate things, right? We didn't have to
Yeah.
save our money for, but yeah, just stop shopping. Just don't have Amazon deliver all the time to you. But, and then routine purging, and you will find it gets easier. Once you start, it gets pretty addicting. I don't need it. I don't need it. My girls are like, Mom, stay out of our rooms. And I'm like, oh no, nope.
That's a mindset, Carolyn. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, you
Mhm.
didn't take it with you. You ain't coming back to wear this t-shirt or this
Nope.
or that or whatever.
They'll never
So,
miss it.
and then one of the reasons why it continues is just that, you know, people are just too busy to keep like items together. So you buy a new one. You can't find the last one. Think about, farmers or mechanics, and they've got multiple tools and everything. Well, because they can't find the tool they need when they need it. So they'll get another one, right? But, I just say when in doubt, throw it out, use it or lose it. Um, give away unneeded items. I mean, if you want to try to sell it, that's up to you. But just, start now versus later. Procrastination is a big reason why a lot of us have clutter. Everything should have a place in it. And then I always just say, start small. One of the things I always say, I need to trademark this, but I've been saying it for years. Do your giving while you're living, so you'll be knowing where it's going. We try to tell
Oh,
our
that's
moms,
good. Uh-huh.
especially for older folks that may be strapped for a little bit of cash, start gifting the things you want folks to have now. Save yourself. You don't have to go shopping. Most of us at our age now would rather have something meaningful from our parents than something they would go shop for at Walmart or Target or off of Amazon, if you really think about it. So, sharing those things that are meaningful today, and then the right person will get it, and there won't be any family fights over it in the future. So, do your living or giving while you're living, so you'll be knowing exactly where it's going. And another thing is, how do you know if you've got an issue? Well, if you wouldn't feel bad to see your house catch on fire to get rid of all the mess that you got,
Mm.
then it's probably time to declutter, right? You
Hmm.
know, um, But I also say it's okay to reuse. I mean, it's okay to shop thrift. It's okay to not have the newest and latest and greatest. You don't have to have the newest phone. It's okay to drive secondhand vehicles. There's no reason that we have to have, all that new stuff. It's just like I said, the more debt you have, the less time you have. So if people would get in that new mindset that, if you can walk into a store and go shopping and walk out with nothing, then that's some of the first steps. I did that
Thank
three
you for
times
saying
yesterday.
that. Will you tell my teenager that, please?
Well, then that's a budget thing there, they gotta wants and
Exactly. She
needs.
was begging me for a new cell phone right before Christmas, and I said, yours still works. You'll be fine. You be
Mhm.
fine." You know
Yeah.
what? She still has the same cell phone. Yeah.
And don't procrastinate. When I'm shopping for a new vehicle, because I'm very much I only buy used vehicles. About a year before I think I'm ready to start buying one, I'll start shopping.
Mm-hmm.
That way
Yeah.
I have um time to buy just what I want and how I want. If I wait till my car quits running or something happens to it, then I am obligated to purchase something right then and there, right? Because I got to have a car. I live in the country. I got to get to work. So by shopping and start looking for something in advance, I get the right thing for the right money.
Yes. Yeah. That's an excellent tip. Yeah. Absolutely. I see Robin's got her kid in the background. I have a little dog that just jumped up onto my bed, my bed up here next to me. So this is just the day of distractions. I'm so sorry.
It,
Oh, it's
you
all
know,
good.
we were having such great information. I'm like, I'm not going to interrupt the flow here, but I did mute it so you didn't get to hear his immediate needs that were deemed
Uh-huh.
the emergency. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Anyway. Oh, Carolyn, you have filled us with some great, awesome tips, and I wholeheartedly agree with all of them. Yes, that's my little friend I have right now. And I declutter like no other some days. And again, my children don't always love me for it, but someday they
Mhm.
will. They'll appreciate me. I know they will.
Yeah.
oh, Jody, they will. And I know you can say that because you've helped clean out in their houses, but I just think about the burden that we can leave to people if we don't do any of this.
That's what I keep telling them is that someday you'll thank me for this because you won't have to have so much to clean up when I'm not here. So, exactly.
Mhm.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
They people talk about that Swedish death cleaning, and I don't believe in that. I
Yeah.
know some people go so far as like they have four members in their family, so they have four plates, four forks, four cups. I don't believe in that. However, I don't think you need four sets of dishes. So it's all a matter of what, perspective. Um, do I have Christmas dishes? I have Christmas plates that are Corral, so they match my other ones, and a little stack. So yeah, I don't have all the fancy stuff. I don't have a place to store all that. My Christmas holiday meals are just as yummy without all the fancy Christmas stuff as anybody else's. Now, my twin sister loves all of that stuff, and her house is beautiful, but she also has the storage space. But I'm just glad I don't have to deal with it. Her kids will have to.
Well, and I think that there was a point there too. If it brings you joy, we're not here telling people to get rid of their Christmas dishes,
No.
Exactly.
anything like
No.
that. I think that difference there was the joy that came through in your voice talking about your special Christmas dishes, the few that you have, instead of the burden of I have totes of Christmas dishes I have to pull out and use.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing of it is, when my kids were talking, they were talking about a Christmas ornament that I put on my tree every year, and I had no idea either one of them wanted it. So, don't ask your kids, hey, just so you know, I don't want you feel obligated to keep all these Christmas dishes. But they may go, "Oh no, I want those because we used them every year." They have that history. If you have fine china in your cabinet that you have never used, there's no ownership to it to the next generation. If
Right.
you're not using it, there is no ownership. So a quilt on your mother's bed means a lot to you because that's what you snuggled up. But if you took that quilt and put it away so it was never, could never be hurt in any way, that has no ownership to the next generation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
They don't want it if there's no ownership.
Yep.
So
Nope.
use it.
I
Use
had
those items.
I had some really nice china and I never used it. My girls didn't want it. I found a website where you could sell your china, got rid of it, got a little money out of it. It's gone.
Yep.
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 And you may have made somebody really happy because they were able to complete a set that did mean a
Yeah,
lot to them.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I have plenty of sets of china. I did not need that set of china. Mm-mm. Yep.
I might mention, ladies, that if you are getting rid of some heirloom items or items that have been passed down the family, always, always double check with other family members before purchasing anything. Always
Yeah.
make sure that a cousin or an aunt or somebody else doesn't want that china or that bedroom set or whatever it might be before you get rid of it, because
Right.
there may be somebody else in the family that has some.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay.
Wow. So I'm going to kind of tie this back into, or I should ask Caroline, do you have any other decluttering tips you wanted to share with us today?
No, but I challenge, well, not really a tip, but I do challenge everybody just not to spend uh, on unneeded items for a month and see how you get along. And then within that month, see, do 10 items in 10 days. And they could be as small as a wooden spoon to a bottle of shampoo you haven't ever used because you don't like the way it feels or smells. Pick 10 items in 10 days, get rid of. Do it again, 30 items in 30 days, whatever it might be. You know, just just start small. It doesn't have to be time consuming. 30 items in 30 days isn't time consuming. It's something you pick up, you look at in your house and go, don't need it. So just get started somewhere.
So I would tie this back to, we just talked about one of our podcasts, the 1st of January, was on SMART goals and action plans. So if you feel like, oh, I'm so motivated to start, but where do I start? You could go listen to that podcast as well, and we help you develop an action plan or SMART goal that could use one of those tips, like you just said, 10 items in 10 days, and you know, see if that's what's doable for you in your current situation. So, um, Jody, do you have our socials and all of that list ready today?
Not exactly, but I can try. So you can find us both on Facebook. I'm at I think PrattCountyExtension.com or Pratt County Extension on Facebook. Robin is at Barber
County
County
Extension?
Extension.
Yep.
And you can email us with ideas too. I'm at jdrake@k-state.edu. And Robin is at REUBANK@k-state.edu. And you can also find the podcast on both Spotify and Apple. And we post those on our Facebook pages. I'm on Instagram as well, and I usually have a link to that on my Facebook page sometimes. And I've also been posting the link to my YouTube channel as well. So I apologize for the sketchiness today and my distractedness. Although I did get an update from my teenager, my vehicle is now unstuck. So
Yay.
the tractor going up my driveway did its job. Thank you to my brother-in-law.
So, yes. And we will share the link to the Institute for Challenging Disorganization that Caroline told us about. And I just, Caroline, I want to thank you. You will go down in history as our first guest to ever visit our podcast. So, yay. Yes.
Well, thank you for
you
having
so
me.
much.
Maybe
And
a t-shirt or something.
we should. So, and in this, you talked a little bit, but one of our upcoming podcasts is going to be on budgeting. So it does kind of lend to this. But our next week, if you come back and join us, Jody and I got to talking, and we don't talk about the 4-H half of our job very often on here. So we want to share
We
a
wear a
little
lot
bit
of hats.
next week about 4-H and what it means to us and what we're able to offer here in our counties in Kansas. So
That's
I just
awesome.
Okay.
thank you all for joining us today and look forward to visiting with you again.
Thanks
Thanks.
for having me, guys.
Thank you.